Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, Statto, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Hang on, wait a minute, that is you, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know, some masked man.
There, that should confirm it.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Lucifer's here. Hey, Lucifer.
Hi, Lucifer.
Right. Dare I ask what you're drinking?
It's the same old crap. You know, the healthy stuff, the stuff that's no fun.
Right.
I sit in a chair all the time. I got to watch that.
I'm drinking a rather fine Chianti, that has to be said.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very nice. I'll be getting this one again.
What kind of meat you eating that with?
I made a kind of like a Italian penny with bolognese. And
his name was Penny?
Italian. Very, very funny. It was steak. Yeah. It was steak.
Great.
It was red and steaky.
Oh, good. That's the number one quality of a steak, I hear.
Number one quality of a steak, yeah. Usually in Scotland, if you can throw it and it bounces, it's ready. I think Americans are the same normally, aren't they? They like it well done.
Well, no. Well, you'll be shamed for sure if like you don't have a little pink in it for most people.
Right. Yeah, I tend to have just a little pink. I don't mind if it bleeds a little bit, but
you don't go like super rare, like just wipe its butt, knock its horns off, and just bring it to me.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think you need to have you have an exceptional piece of meat for that, though, don't you? Really, that's kind of something at the supermarket. I'm not going to chance it. Right. So, yes. Now that we've talked about obscure meats, tonight's going to be a wee bit different.
It is.
Yeah, tonight is you this on Comic Book Gold, and it's your choices. You are Statistical Zero, the cartooning hero, and you've got the mask to prove it. And rather than me with my slides as is usual, you're going to take us through a journey with your slides, and we'll have a discussion around the artists that are either have influenced you, or you just kind of like their work or or whatever.
That's right. You're getting half a day off.
Yeah, half a day off. I didn't need to do any slides. Yay! Yay!
Woo.
Hey, peeps.
Hey, people.
Why
am I waving? Crap.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to share your screen.
Let me just bring that up. Photos. Share that. Here we go.
There we go.
Great.
Ta-da.
Perfect. So what we're looking at here is the first comic that I ever looked at. My brother had read it to me when I was 3 or 4 years old, 2 years old. I can't remember. Long time ago. It's a John Byrne cover. So John Byrne being the first comic book artist I have ever seen.
Wow.
And right after that, the one I remember would be Dark Knight Returns. My brother, it was a gift to my brother, and I was a 4-year-old. I just grabbed it and started looking at it. And the first thing that I remember were the splash pages. That's what kind of an effect they had. You got all these panels, and then you flip it, and there's just big, huge image.
Yeah.
And that's when I really fell in love with comics. So splash pages are responsible for that.
Cool. I mean, this was a harkening back to the old funny books that Marvel used to do with Not Brandech.
Oh yeah,
and things like that. So
Bushman and that kind of stuff. Yeah, or the roasts. They used to do Marvel roasts. That's
right. Was Fred Hembeck in this one as well?
I don't know if Fred Hembeck was in this or not, but he did a lot of that. He probably. I think he did have segments in this.
Yeah,
I think it was like
Bushman.
Yep, the wackier time.
Yeah,
Superman and the Fantastical Four.
Superman. What was it? I remember Mad Magazine. What did they call Super Duper Man? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this right here is what started it all.
Well, these were kind of great, especially like when you're a kid, because they're making fun of the superheroes, but they're doing it affectionately.
Oh yeah.
Because it's people who actually create superheroes as well that are doing it and like them. So yeah. This
is when things were there was a little less animosity and a little more just friendly competition, I think, between the companies. Okay, so hey Dave.
Hey Dave.
For the people coming in, basically what I'm doing is I'm talking about comic books here, but also kind of artists that helped push into my style. I've got a couple different styles, as you guys have seen, like the really cartoony comic strip style, which I prefer, and then something slightly more realistic, but still kind of cartoony, because I like to keep it in the comic book realm and not do like the life art. Yeah, plus the realistic stuff takes a heck of a lot longer. So if you're on a deadline and you're trying to produce, you want quick, consistent stuff, and the stuff that kind of sings off the page with like exaggerated movements and things like that. That doesn't lend itself so well to realistic stuff because it just looks wrong.
Did you ever see the issue of Alpha Flight that John Byrne did? Who was the character? Snowbird or Snowflight, whatever. I can't remember her name. Mm-hmm. But he did practically half the issue was a character in a snowstorm. In a blizzard, and it was just white panel after white panel with sound effects and dialogue.
Sounds like the kind of stuff he used to do in She-Hulk.
Yeah,
they'd be jumping rope, and it would conveniently take out all over. Like,
and at the time, because I'd bought this, and I'm like, hang on a minute.
Had that happened now, we would have had all the articles about how they're cheating.
Oh, totally.
Not giving us any art. Okay, so the first artist for me, Watterson. I remember when Calvin and Hobbes finished in the newspapers back in the 90s. It was the first time like something meaningful had come to an end for me, and even my parents were sad. I didn't quite understand. It was like a death almost, because it was a 10-year run. And Watterson I like because he could have made millions and millions of dollars off of this, but he was very much just for like it's for art. He didn't want to deal with all the people calling him like, "Hey, I got a Calvin and Hobbes lunchbox. I want you to sign off on," and stuff like. He just wanted to draw, and he practiced what he preached. But what I like about him is like a lot of the artists on this list. There's an economy of line that goes into this. It's very simple. You get across what you need, but it's all placed so perfectly that you try to do it yourself, and it's deceptively difficult.
Yeah,
but he makes it look so easy.
And he's approached his color work as slightly different as well. So it's like he's got everything worked out for the Sunday colors as well.
The beautiful watercolor that he did. Yeah. But for me, one thing that this taught me was, like as far as faces go, the eyes aren't necessarily the most important thing. Yeah, when he wanted like a real expression, yes, the eyes would change and they'd wrinkle and they'd do stuff like that. But overall, 2 dots will serve pretty much anything you need. As long as the mouth is right and the eyebrows, if applicable, are right. Those 2 things are the most important because that's where the expression comes from. That like the eyebrows going up and a gape mouth that's shock, down, and gritted teeth that's angry. That simplicity is what you can look at it and instantly know what the character's thinking. No words needed whatsoever. And I'm big on that. Like you want the art to be able to tell the story, and then the words are the icing on that cake.
Yeah.
So.
Especially in a cartoonist sort of like traditional cartooning style as well, where it's economy of line. Mm-hmm. Even just looking at Mr. Watterson there with his mustache.
It's a glorious mustache.
Yep, it is indeed. I think I was saying to you before the show started, he's like a clean-cut version of Robert Crumb sitting there with that mustache.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of clear storytelling in art. And the more rendering, I think, goes on just for rendering's sake, I think it takes away from the clarity, and it's a disservice to the artist and the reader.
Yeah.
There's a difference between doing lots of lines to gray something out if it's a black and white piece, and just like putting all these lines all over the face just so there's not a blank space there.
Yeah, there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah. And I know people rag on him, but Rob Liefeld is a pretty decent example of that. Like sometimes where there's just too many lines, just to have lines there, just for like a little more, I guess, kinetic energy on the page. Maybe he's putting busyness in to keep the kinetic energy up, but I think it takes away from the clarity of the story. Clutters the page a little bit. From my point of view.
Yeah, I think that comes from seeing manga and not quite understanding what they're doing with the lines in manga.
That's probably a very fair point. A lot of linear not unlike Narwhal's kind of an interesting sort of example. He only uses 1 line weight from what I've seen.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it.
Yep. He uses
Any
one
difference?
line
No.
weight, and then he does everything else with colors.
Yeah, it's very much like cell
Yeah,
shaded.
that's right. That's very clear. And I think with this style, some people have commented on sometimes the arms are too long or, whatever like that. But when you see his animations, it all makes sense because what he does is like, I don't know if you guys know, but for when you're animating, if you have a character moving fast, there's a stretch involved. Yeah. And it almost like he draws it mid stretch. Like the arms come in and it's going to be a little bit longer because it's moving fast.
Yeah.
So
it's the anticipation before the action is all there in that kind of drawing.
He draws as if he's got a low frame animation.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It is. So anyways, we got Bill Rodderson here. He was one of the first guys that made the impact. And I think anybody that's drawn comic strips, because he was the last, I think probably the last big comic strip artist ever. After that, it kind of went into comic books, and late 80s or early 90s, comic strips fell by the wayside.
Yeah, there was him, and there was what's his name? The guy that did the Far Side stuff.
Larson.
Larson, yeah. I think they were the last two great sort of like cartoonists, as it were. And Bill Watterson he just decided, yeah, that's it. I've said all I need to say about this. I'm stopping.
He went on and started painting just for himself.
Yeah.
And he's, I think, probably the only one that made it without merchandise, just on sheer work alone. And the thing that I noticed reading this as an adult, as a little kid, you're seeing, him throwing snowballs at little girls and playing with the tiger and stuff, and it's all great. But then you get older, and there's all these themes, very adult themes in this, and that's the perfect blend of an all ages book. That's, I think, what everybody aims to. It's just like what we were talking about with Planet of the Apes, where you watch it as a kid and it's just like these monsters, these great monsters, and this guy's trying to fight for his life in this horrible thing. And then you get older and you're like, whoa, it's a movie about racism. It's a movie about when to use violence and not to use violence, and there's all kinds of stuff in here to think about.
Yep, definitely.
Perfect balance.
I'd just like to point out to the chat that Statto mentioned Planet of the Apes this week, not me.
That's right. I'll expect my $5 later.
Okay, cheers. Yeah, but good choice. Nobody could really argue with how great he was.
I didn't want to go with that. I didn't want to go with a up-to-date picture, because we all see Graham on his awesome channel, which he's been doing some great stuff over there. And I wanted to talk more about his comic strips. Then I mean, everybody knows he co-created Bane. And if I had to choose a Batman story, it'd be like The Devil's Advocate that he and Chuck Dixon worked on together. I mean, you want to talk about a creative, like, moral conundrum. Batman having to save a psycho because the psycho didn't do it.
Yeah.
That's. But here we got his Sunshine State strip, which he does every week. And I fell in love with this thing. This is one of the earlier ones. And I think he's still doing them. But he talked a little bit about, so under here is his Phantom strips. He did the Phantom Sundays for a good while. The
Phantom is like an interesting character, because he never really took off outside of Australia, like in a big way,
Oh, yeah.
There's been so many good Phantom strips as well, and so many great artists worked on the Phantom.
30s.
Yeah. But outside of that time, the golden age, he's never really connected with people.
But see, what I like about Graham is, again, very clear storytelling. Let me see here if I can. Where's the zoom in button? Oh, well.
Oh, technology. Everybody, make your screen bigger.
Well, I had it. I had it before, but no, we're not leaving. All right. Anyways, well, we'll just, and I put a bunch of blue dots around it. Okay. So anyways, is that going to carry to the next one?
But you can see there's even, I mean, that Phantom pages.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
It's terrific, and it's very, very much evocative of both a film noir kind of approach and 1930s serials approach to the way that he's doing it.
And it was very, very clear storytelling. I mean, again, and he uses high contrast, which I like. Just like the, coming right out of the blacks, or like there's that last panel with the cigar, burning in the darkness there. You can see exactly what's going on. You don't need the words. And then like the cover there that he had where he's like brought right into the foreground with the black, and then he's just like he says, don't be afraid to leave some white on the page to separate things, and the black smoke, like cutting the image in half. I love that.
Yep.
So that's something that's kind of worked its way into my stuff too. Sometimes I will sit and draw a silhouette and then get white out and draw right over the top of it all the things that I want lit. Because I don't know, it's like an experimental kind of thing, but sometimes you do that so you don't have to sit and either draw, sit and stroke the whole thing through and color it all in, or try to do the fill bucket and then go and try to get all the little pieces you missed. And
I've been thinking about having an experiment, doing a strip there where I'm just doing shadow and light.
That'd be cool.
Because I think Keith Giffen did that for a while. If you look at a lot of the stuff he did in like the early 90s and that, it was almost, if you take any colour away from it, he's almost just working in shadow.
Well, I mean, those old adventure strips used to do that all the time, where they would just have a silhouette and the backdrop would have some, like line work in it, but the silhouette would be where your eye is drawn to. Yep.
I think it'd take a lot of planning, but be very quick to execute. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which and the fact that he talks about this stuff quite a bit on his channel is great, just from a learning perspective. But I do appreciate that he's keeping like the kind of all ages strip going.
Yeah.
And I know it doesn't do any money for him or anything. It's a labor of love, but
yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I'm an all ages guy too. It's just my all ages book's got cannibalism in it.
Well, back in the day, I mean, like that sort of was.
Exactly. That's my thinking. It's 1938.
The old EC comics and stuff like that. When they started out, it was very much that. But then the Pretenders came on, or the they ratcheted up the gore and all that stuff, and then EC had to do that because everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
And then
some of those Pretenders were good though. Some of them were really good.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it got to the point where it was like right on the cover, a guy would be like, "Hey, I know you can't speak, and you couldn't call anyways because the people downstairs I cut their tongues out right on the cover." And
yeah,
what?
And a lot of those covers were drawn by Don Heck, who was like a really kind of like a very traditional, clean cut sort of like a cartoonist. The work he did for Marvel.
So I guess when they want those covers, they go to Heck.
Yeah. Hey. Cool. Well, Graham Nolan, yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah. And the stuff that he's released lately, like his Return to Monster Island or Monster Island books, Joe Frankenstein, the Shinu that's coming up. Guy loves monsters. He does the 31 Days of Monsters every week. But I mean, like he's kind of perfected that kind of monster storytelling just from an entire lifetime of watching Hammer and Universal and every kind of monster movie you could think of. So I mean, if you like adventure and stuff, he's the right guy to go to.
Brilliant. To be side note, I've just bought the Phantom Blu-ray.
Oh, you did? I just did. I just ordered it. Yeah. Show it to my wife.
Me too.
I've got the Statto. I've got Dick Tracy. I've got the Phantom. I've got Zorro. I've been kind of going through and collecting those old adventure strips that they got big boom in the 90s.
Yeah. There's no helping us, Statto. We're doomed.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. So here we go. Ed McGuinness. This is the first picture I think I've ever seen of him. But he was like, he and Dan Jurgens were my Superman artists.
Yeah.
Jurgens, I think, as a writer, being a Midwesterner, like Superman, he gets it. But McGuinness, I love because he's got the anatomy's all correct, 100%. And he makes comic book men look like comic book men. They're big. He's got really dynamic punches and poses and fights and things like that. Sometimes he's had issues of the Hulk that are pretty much like 15 out of the 22 pages are fights.
Yeah.
But like you want exaggerated type poses. You want exaggerated muscle, guys that are larger than life. This guy is a great artist to go with that. So this is just kind of a testament to what you can do when you know anatomy. And you can make it, whatever you want. Yeah.
You have to understand anatomy before you can start breaking the rules and playing around with anatomy.
Oh, absolutely. and this is the perfect example. I mean, his Hulk is probably one of the, and now he'd be listed in the top 5, maybe with like Dale Keown and Gil Kane, and one of the Buscemas.
Yeah. Well, it's got that sense. We say something's like Kirby. His work's like Kirby, but it doesn't look like Kirby. It's a sense of power, and the quality that he has was dynamic, and that's what people tend to mean when they say it. So his Hulk is like a Kirby Hulk, although if you were to put them side by side, they look totally different. But he understands the sense of dynamics and the quality that he needs to make the character larger than life and powerful. Get
that Sal Buscema kind of angry face.
Yeah, I when I was a kid, I drew everybody with that face, the Sal Buscema sort of like grimace.
So did he.
Yes, pretty much.
He was so fast that a lot of his faces ended up being just like a few series of like very well placed lines.
Yeah,
I love Sal Buscema. His Spider-Man run and his Hulk run were some of my
his Hulk run to Bill Mantlo writing most of them, wasn't it? Yeah, that was great.
Some of my first exposures to the characters were Buscema, and when I found out the dude did like 10, 12 pages a week or something like that, it was lightning fast. A couple pages a day. But Superman, I didn't care as much for him until about the 7th grade. It had to have been McGinnis-Loeb run. I mean, the Death of Superman, I hadn't bought the whole series at that time because I was a little kid. But his McGinnis-Loeb run, where you just saw this giant Superman, and he would do like the villain of the week every issue, just like bam, 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 hit after hit kind of thing. There wasn't a lot of time to catch your breath. And I love that. It's an action book. Make some action.
Yeah, I caught up with them in trades a couple of years ago because I'd never actually read them at the time because I wasn't really reading much mainstream at that time, but they're really good.
Yeah, and in the Hulk run with Loeb also, I think Loeb's the type of writer that just says, hey, what do you want to draw? And the artist would be like, hey, I want to draw fights.
Yeah.
So he writes with 6 issues worth of fighting.
Hulk smash.
Hulk smash. That's what. Yeah, Hulk's a funny one because I mean, if you guys have ever read like the old Essential Hulks or like anything, the old stuff, every story is the same. It came out bi-monthly, I think, in the Tales to Astonish or what have you. So it was always Hulk is by himself. Army comes. Hulk gets mad, says, "Leave me alone." Army fights him. He smashes them and leaves. And then the next issue, there's a bad guy. He's going to try to use the Hulk. Hulk want to be left alone. Bad guy tries to use him. Hulk gets angrier, smashes him, leaves. It's the same thing every time.
Yep. It would always end him jumping up over a hill.
Yep, and leaving.
which is great. That's what you wanted.
The late Mike Wieringo.
Yeah.
Another artist that, for me, I learned a lot from this just because he, again, very simple in his approach, but he made comic books. Spider-Man had those eyes that emoted. So, hey, the new Marvel universe, they can thank Ringo. And then the Flash, Ringo added the lightning bolts.
Yep.
I mean, the CW turned him into a stupid power where he could like throw them. I don't agree with that. This was just a way to show movement.
Yeah, I stopped watching CW.
Right. But yeah, now they had it so they could actually grab a piece of lightning and throw it at somebody. Right. Making the Flash a lightning hero now.
See, I'm old school. I'm still not 100% behind the Speed Force. That's how old school I am.
What is that, Wade created that?
I think it was running a bit weird, wasn't it? But yeah,
His Fantastic Four one was freaking amazing.
Terrific.
Too.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, he's another one of those guys that was very clear, very consistent, and that he was cartoony, but he still had that kind of realistic edge, almost like his bodies were realistic, his faces were cartoony. And I love that. From what I understand, everybody that met him loved him too. So that's, such a horrible loss, even to this day. I still miss reading his stuff. But it left an impact on me for sure. I love this stuff. And he was another one, again, with like the really something you don't see as much today, the exaggerated movements. Like that Flash right there. Leaning forward, running at the camera, speed lines, lightning all over the place.
Yeah.
and that's just a sketch.
Yeah. Well, he's unlike a lot of people today. He's not using 3D models, so that's always a
Absolutely
big
not.
help.
No.
And there's certain poses and ways of drawing that you just kind of like you do it as a shorthand, and it's really dynamic.
Oh, Lee Weeks, his Daredevil stuff, and he did for Walt Simonson. He did Predator versus Tarzan.
Yeah, that was good.
It was really good and really well drawn. Lee Weeks is a great example of, for me, of shapes. And, you know, you look at like Superman here, you got that barrel chest, and really you see a lot of triangles in his work. And I work in a lot in triangles myself. When you're going like this, when you're laying out and stuff like that, a lot of it's just triangles. But I do like his spot blacks. He uses a lot of spot blacks to, like that kid bringing him into the foreground with the black leg for Superman.
Yep.
The background, the trees with the hatching and the subtle hatching and stuff like that there. He with his Daredevil run, it would have been what did he do for Daredevil? Just I guess some random issues here and there, but that and then some of his Superman stuff like this really kind of showed me that you don't necessarily need to it's much simpler than it looks.
Yep.
And again, harder to draw. But I mean,
yeah, but he's one of these artists that's been doing it for decades without being like a big fan favorite as such, you know.
I know, right?
Which I don't quite understand why that is.
Always consistently good.
Yeah.
He also did Magnus Robot Fighter versus Predator as well. For Valiant.
Right.
Valiant Dark Horse crossover. That was a pretty cool little 2-issue deal. But I
think I've read that one.
Is that right?
Look that one out. Yeah,
2 issues. I don't know if it's ever collected, but I mean,
the internet, you never know. It might be on Comixology actually.
Possibly. But I mean, like here, you're looking at it, and it's not terribly complex.
No.
It's very, very simple to follow, and this is the kind of stuff that I focus on. Just shapes, and like, you know, we'll get into a little bit later. I started studying animation, and that opens up whole new avenues as far as drawing goes. For speed, for layouts, that really I found helped me. And anybody that listens, I'll tell them to do the same thing. Just, you know, stop looking at somebody, because when you look at somebody's style, I think eventually or evident you try to emulate it. How many people tried to be Jim Lee?
Yeah.
or got mad because it didn't look like Jim Lee, or and then just quit because they couldn't draw like Jim Lee.
Yeah, when you start to do that, you basically you get rid of what you've got that's working. That's the first thing that happens when somebody does that. And
you just have to draw over and over again and see what you like at the end of the day.
Yep.
And your influences will come out what you're reading. You know, you might find you're drawing legs like some guy and faces like another.
Yep. It's like I say, you can think like Kirby but draw like you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Everybody's got a weakness. Like Jim Aparo, wonderful Batman artist, couldn't draw. It didn't seem like he could draw kids to save his life. They always look like smaller 30-year-olds at times. And that could have also partially been the inker.
It could have been, yeah. But then, I know what you mean, though. But then again, kids looked that way back then. Like middle-aged Ron Howards.
But I think every artist is going to have something they struggle with.
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
It's legs, trying to hook the legs, feet. That's another one. Hands. I
don't struggle with feet, funnily enough, but I've heard some do.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have occasionally drawn the odd finger that's not meant to be there, but you notice that thing.
Ginger root hand.
Yeah, that only in digital art, because you're zooming in sometimes. That's that.
Mm-hmm. Joe Kubert,
yeah.
I think with the exception of maybe Stan Lee's personality, and you know, like Stan the Man Lee, Joe Kubert's probably done more for comics and growing new comic artists than anybody else. With his school, with, you know, just the amount of work that he put out to look at in like old Weird War Tales, Sergeant Rock, Aquaman, Tarzan, those adventure kind of things. Very cross-hatchy guy. Or not cross-hatchy, very hatchy guy. So
feathery.
I feel like
feathery. Very
Neil
feathery
Adams
kind of guy.
would probably be in this school.
Yep.
Who else would be?
I think Joe Kubert all round is probably the best out of them all as far as being a draftsman is concerned, because it seemed effortless to him.
Oh, military especially.
Yeah, and even just when you look at the amount of output, because he wasn't just drawing issues every month, he was editing like a whole line of war comics as well. And you're like, wow. So yeah, I think Joe Kubert is.
And then he's running a school forever.
Yeah, running that school too. But I think the 70s, a lot of the comics coming out of DC that people remember reading, picking up off the stands, whether they're superhero war comics or horror comics or whatever, they always had a wee bit of Joe Kubert in them. I don't know how he did it.
I discovered him the same time I discovered Gene Colan, Tony DeZuniga, a lot of those guys that did the genre stuff for DC or Marvel, like Jonah Hex and House of Mysteries, stuff like that. Very 70s style, that hatchy type stuff. Neil Adams, like I said, same kind of deal. Yeah. Joe Kubert always, who was he? Enemy Ace? He did Enemy Ace too.
He did Enemy Ace, Sergeant Rock, of course. Mm-hmm. He did a terrific run of Tarzan.
He do the Unknown Soldier?
He did. No, I think he might have done some of the covers, or maybe some of the early ones, but I don't think it was him. Who was it?
Talk about a great book.
I'll need to check. I'll need to look that up. I've got John Albino as the name that's coming to mind.
Okay.
But I'll check up. But yeah, Enemy Ace and Sergeant Rock, Tarzan, loads of stuff that he did.
Enemy Ace always reminded me of the Blue Max.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he, he was drawn all the way up to the end pretty much.
Pretty much. And if anything, he got better as he got older. I don't know, because he did a Sergeant Rock graphic novel later on, which is just terrific. And
he hadn't missed a step. But again, that's the economy of line. He didn't feel the need to put but a few lines down, and they all made sense. But, hey, after 30, 40, 50 years of drawing, I guess it's got to be easy.
Yeah, he did the early Unknown Soldiers, and then it was Jerry Talak. I say that. And he was a Filipino type artist. Yeah,
sure. And then his sons, Andy and Adam.
Yeah.
Where are we going next? Here we go. Andy looks a lot like his dad's art, I think.
It does.
The influence is strong. And it even got more so. Obviously, I don't think this is a completely, most of these aren't completely up-to-date pictures, but that was just grabbing a decent representation. But yeah, he did a lot of Batman. He did, was it 1602 from Marvel, I think?
I think so. Yeah, he did. I wasn't a big fan of that, but yeah, his artwork's great in it.
Oh,
Him
yeah.
and his brother, the first time I saw them together was on Doc Savage.
Really?
They did a Doc Savage miniseries that Denny O'Neil wrote where they updated Doc Savage into the modern day.
Was Adam inking Andy or was Andy inking Adam?
I'm not quite sure. I think it was, looking at their work now, I think that Adam was responsible for the pencils. Because it looked a lot like a Joe Kubert comic than it did. Like
Adam was a lot
it looked
more comic booky. He's a lot cartoonier and experimental, I think.
So I'm guessing he was doing the inking. But then you don't know, because they could both have been very much like the father at that time. You never know. Oh,
I'm totally sure they could have like aped each other's style if they needed to.
Yeah,
something like that. But, Adam was actually the one that I kind of was aware of first from his Hulk and X-Men runs back in the early 2000s. I always liked his Hulk.
Yeah, because I remember seeing his stuff and thinking, not quite clicking that it was a Kubert, because it was so different from what I'd seen them do together when they were doing Doc Savage.
I kind of wonder if he didn't have something to prove.
Yeah.
Like separate himself a little bit, but he's following the key rule of drawing a Hulk. Those hands got to be bigger than the head.
Yeah. No, Hulk smash. Yeah.
Hulk smash.
If ever you're in doubt with Hulk smash, then that sorts it out for you.
Oh yeah, that's the answer.
Big hands, magic trousers, sorted.
Unstable molecules. That's the answer to everything in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and just leave it at that. I accept it. Go with it.
Yeah. But Adam was probably my first favorite. I think as I got older, I still really like Adam, but Andy was I came to appreciate that more. I think because it again. I mean, I really like Joe.
Yeah,
and
I mean they're all good. Let's face it.
Oh,
They've
great!
got the gene. They've got the Kubert gene.
Absolutely masters. And I heard that he didn't take it easy on them because they were his sons. He was harder.
Probably, yeah.
He made an example out of those guys. Who's next here? Oh, my favorite currently,
Darwin Cook.
Darwin Cook. I listened to for a while. I was listening to a lot of his interviews and stuff like that, and he was absolutely right as far as like, make it all ages.
Yeah,
it's a big thing with me. He had one point where he's talking about like Superman, and he's like, there shouldn't not ever be a non-all ages story Superman. If you're doing that, then you don't have enough imagination to write the character. Step away from the book.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I've always agreed with that. It's one of the reasons why I hate the swearing in PG-13 movies, because it's a cynical ploy to get a higher rating when the movie doesn't really need it or deserve it. And it's a cynical way of saying this isn't really for the kids, So if you are going to do it, then go on, make it like Scarface, all or nothing for me,
PG-13 was just a dump bucket for the things they didn't know what to do with as far as our PG-13. So
and now it's just a case of like it's a checklist of all the things you're allowed to have, and that's why there's so many bad superhero movies now.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
But
nobody will go see a PG superhero movie because they think they did that with the second Fantastic Four movie. They brought it down to PG, but it
wasn't good. I think if people make good PG movies, people will go and see them.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the Star Wars and that, they were G's when they came out, weren't they? They were U's over here, all the ages. Just need to make a good movie. Hollywood wouldn't understand that, but
yeah. They only had one. Did they have one or two PG-13 Star Wars movies? The Revenge of the Sith was PG-13.
Was that PG-13?
Yeah, just for that scene where he's burning on the.
That was so funny though.
You're laughing.
It was so funny.
It's over.
I have the high ground. Oh my god, I laughed so much to that film.
Man!
I started laughing when they were frolicking, and the kind of like the romantic stuff, and then it just so funny.
I know what's coming. No. But what am I? Oh, here, I had it and then I lost it.
Yeah,
there we go. Hey,
perfect.
Hey, get my pen out. That's what I wanted. So yeah, this is the Parker series that he did for IDW. He did 4 books. I think it was one of the last things he did, if not the last thing.
Yeah. Which are all terrific.
Single color.
Yep. If
all the way.
Anybody in the chat doesn't have them, you can get them quite cheap in Comixology as well, and they are worth reading in digital too because they work perfectly both ways.
Oh, you can get cheap used copies of them too. I mean, hardcover. There's a bunch of them. They're under $20. I mean, as far as
not in the UK, you can't. I had a look.
Oh, I suppose that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they got those nice martini editions that are big. They're like almost full page sized.
Oh yeah, they're lovely.
Oh, of course I can't really do
Hey Russ.
Hey Russ. But I mean, when you look at this, it's not terribly. The pen strokes and stuff like that aren't terribly. It's just like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
He definitely had a style for speed, like he'd said before. It was for making deadlines.
Yeah.
And he was a big backer of like you get your pages done.
Yeah, but it was also it wasn't like a Vinnie Coletta way of making deadlines, like just don't draw things. It was very much coming from an animation kind of background, wasn't it? That kind of economy of line.
And there's a discipline involved in that. That he would, like just as far as like, I mean, like where you look at this page right here, how clear that is, but how simple that is. Yep. Choking the guy out, shows the guy's dead, drops him, spits on him, walks away. Tells you everything you need to know about the character, about what happened, and there's no detail. It's all silhouettes.
Yep.
And that's a very like EC style, like face in the middle there. Yep. I like that. But
that image of the car as well, because tweeted that out a few weeks ago, didn't I? Because I was reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of my favourite scenes.
I mean, that's beautiful.
And it's just brilliantly cinematic. But the speed of how you read it is kind of up to you. He leaves it up to you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can imagine that full pace coming towards you, or you can do it in slow motion. It's like you can just spend time with the page, and there's nothing to read there either.
And the kicker before this, the panel before this, the guy's like, "What do you think? I don't know how to drive." The next panel. Oh, but yeah, I mean, like how clean this art right here is. The that was for an unfinished book. I think he was going to do about a kind of a guy that was like goody two shoes type dude, and then he kind of turned into a hardened killer by the end of the book. Yep. Which would have been wonderful to see. And then Batman Ego. I mean, again, that Batman spirit kind of thing there. It's really just a few quick brush strokes, and you get so much detail out of it. Yep. With, just kind of knowing where to put the folds. Yeah.
And I think he's the only kind of modern artist I think that I really liked doing the spirit.
Oh yeah, and he I think I heard he took that just so Frank Miller wouldn't get to it, because he didn't think Frank Miller would do a good job.
Frank, please.
But I mean, when you look at this, like just the rain, how he did that, how simple a fix that was. That's like a very Will Eisner kind of thing. Eisner did a lot with just lines to bring things into the background. And that's something that most artists, I think, with the advent of like this coloring and how it is, like if you do a tight enough pencil and a good enough job inking, like the coloring will take care of itself. You don't even hardly have to do anything. Yeah,
that's my philosophy, because coloring should just be a Zen-like thing you do. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be there to cover deficiencies in the artwork. The artwork should stand on its own, I think.
And I don't know how controversial this is, but I'm not a huge fan of gradient backgrounds.
Yeah, me neither. I use them very, very sparingly.
I'll use them in comic strips sometimes when you've got like a blue sky and it goes from like a sky blue to all the way up to a white at the top of the panel. That's usually to like isolate the words and stuff like that. But I like to have a little something in the background, or if it's going to be a flat color, kind of like this Wonder Woman, and maybe put some texture in there.
Yeah, just a wee bit, just to help.
Just a little bit. I mean, like that's kind of a textured gradient.
Say hi there to World Comics Review, who's managed to get up early enough to catch one live. Brilliant.
Oh, we still got a little ways to go.
So some of the things I like to do as well, because especially when you're working digitally, is like just add a wee bit of grain to your colour. That's all you need sometimes. Just a teeny wee bit of grain, and that will do the job. Kind of like it's the difference between watching a digital kind of like a movie, camcorder type movie, to an old 35mm film.
Or just a few brush strokes to break up like that solid kind of silhouette sort of thing. And it does wonders. Something. It looks more like a painting too, which is something for the eye to look at, which I don't know that necessarily gradients just by themselves, like digital gradients, provide. And you saw a lot of that in the Image comics back in the day. They'd have a very, maybe like a feature panel where the character's popping out of the panel, and then it's just a gradient background, nothing else.
Yeah, the gradient should be there because that's the only solution. That's what I think, because I do use them. I'm not saying you don't use gradients, but you see them so much that you wonder what they're hiding. Because I also know how to use them to hide deficiencies if I have to.
And I mean, right back here in this bottom panel with the Batman spirit, like there's a gradient there to kind of show the light source.
Yeah,
that works out great.
That's I mean, it's there for a reason.
Yeah. And again, it's all clear storytelling. You could take most of the words out, and I believe he does kind of like he did kind of have like a Marvel method where he'd give a sentence on what's on the page. Bruce Wayne's arguing with the spirit, and then he would kind of fill in his dialogue as he went, because maybe a face that he drew maybe suggested a different line, or later on he'd come up and go, "Oh, that's a perfect thing to say," and he'd just go back and change it real quick.
Yeah.
And that allowed him to kind of push the dialogue or the wording around when he's doing the lettering, which kind of how I work too. It's just the easiest way when you're working by yourself, not to have to. You don't need to type up the panel descriptions because you know what you're doing already.
Yeah, I generally have the full page later before I do anything these days, but I return to to the lettering later on and rewrite half of it.
Oh, so you do like a EC kind of thing where they did the lettering first and then draw around the letter?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but I do that just because I know if I don't do that, I could end up drawing something that I end up obscuring because I start thinking about things.
You do like a thumbnail beforehand and then.
I do. I do a very, very rough thumbnail. Okay. Sometimes so rough it's like a stickman kung fu sort of thing. Yeah. Just so I know where characters are going to be. Mm-hmm. Some scribble drawing. I'm big on scribble drawing. I think it's how to draw comics in Marvel. Ever since I saw the page with John Buscema, just scribble draw something and then build it up around it. So I'll scribble draw the page and sometimes just draw a circle and write inside it what's going to be there if it's going to be something quite complex, and then I know where to place all my words in roughly. So it's about I'm about 90% certain that everything's where it's made to be before I start drawing.
And that's one of the beautiful things about digital drawing, where you can just do like a light box and like make a new layer, bring down the opacity for the pencils, and then really just ink.
That's it. That's exactly what I do. So I just build up with layers, and then it's essentially when you do the final pencils, you're doing the inks. So that's how I work.
I can't imagine how fast Jack Kirby would have been with digital.
Oh,
you could have done an issue in a couple of days.
Yeah. I've got a funny feeling though that he probably would need like a digital kind of like Wacom tablet that was like the same size as his drawing desk,
Oh yeah, wouldn't be surprised. Just get it done.
I can't imagine he wouldn't use the Zoom. I'm not using the Zoom.
So with this panel here, what I was talking about before with like kind of studying animation and to make your comic books tighter, and they do this kind of thing in comic books too, like the that Superman at the lower. Where we got lower right here, that's Lopez, I think, Garcia Lopez's work, and that's probably from the style guide for DC. And then up there, that's I think Kurt Swan.
That looks like a Kurt Swan and a Murphy Anderson, doesn't it? It looks like a Murphy Anderson inks.
And then I mean this is a great thing to do before you start your book, is to get those expressions down, get the turnarounds down, especially if you're a writer, maybe have a couple different artists. This is a huge help to be able to say, hey, what's his costume look like? You give him this and you can see front, side, back. The artist can go off to the races. And then these gesture drawings, this I think is important, really important for artists. Not only to get anatomy, where the hand should fall, but to get that dynamic stuff. And they take like a minute, 2 minutes.
Yep.
You don't have to be precious with it, and it'll get movement. So and your layouts will be so much faster if you do these for warm-ups or something like that.
Yep. I did a couple of character sheets for that for Reels of Dark, but I got my models and I photographed their heads for lots of different angles. I was up on ladders and taking shots and whatever. So they've got all that photo reference there for the two main characters in the book. And then I started like drawing freehand ones. Just using that as reference in order to get the look for the character.
And after a while, you can do it in your sleep.
That's it. So it's all that kind of like pre-production that you have to do, and then that means when it comes to actually drawing the characters in the comic, you've kind of got them. One or two characters I didn't do that for, and you can kind of tell.
Oh yeah, it saves so much time. I mean, at the end of the day, it saves a lot of time.
Yeah,
I'm a huge advocate for that kind of thing. All right, Dave Mazzucchelli. I put this on here. I mean, he did, what did he do? He did Born Again. He did Batman Year One. This is the first time I've ever seen him, by the way, too. When I was looking up the thing. But I put him in here because as far as my art style goes, the use of silhouettes and not necessarily needing that detail in the silhouettes. Yeah. Cutting it out. It's in shadow. That'll cut your workload down. Yeah. And that's an was it a Disney animator or something like that? Some animation technique. They say draw your hands first. You get your shoulder done, your torso, then you draw your hand. It's so much easier to connect your arms to where you need to be. And and that kind of thing with that rightmost panel, I could see that kind of thing being done. Yep. You just draw out that cape thing, draw the hand where you want it to be. Don't worry about the arm. It'll take care of itself. And these are the kind of tricks you can learn to make your deadlines. Yep. Get your stuff done. cut out the unnecessary stuff. Again, economy of line. That's that's a huge thing with me. But he seems to have. I know he's done some comics that have been kind of experimental, but he kind of dipped out. He was just like,
Yeah, he could have disappeared for a good while.
I think he went to do more like lucrative stuff.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because he's got the kind of style that can take him into any kind of creative sphere, I think.
But I'll say I prefer this to Frank Miller.
Yeah.
It's much more consistent, and I don't see any baseball mitt hands.
It depends. But Frank Miller on the Daredevil stuff, I think Klaus Janson kind of held him together on that.
Oh yeah, and Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, and then Electro Assassin that he did, the graphic novel, I liked that. I liked his experimentation on that. But again, Lynn Varley's sort of like colours also pulled it together. I think this and Mazzucchelli and Miller's Born Again run on Daredevil are both better comics than The Dark Knight. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I think those are two graphic novels I would give to people before The Dark Knight.
I love your one. I do have a love-hate relationship with Frank Miller, Alan Moore, Mark Millar. These are the dudes that have they have dragged the superhero kind of down into like they're regular people with powers versus these are superheroes.
Yep.
And I mean they make for great stories, but at the same time, they had the opposite effect on me. Where I think I had the effect Alan Moore wanted when I read Watchmen. You know, I didn't necessarily go, I need to make a book like this. I need to make my I said, like, I want to do 1,000 comic strips. You know, it just inspired me to go, I'm going to go do my story. I'm going to do my work. And it's going to be all ages. Which is, I think, the intended effect. But
I mean, Watchmen's terrific. When I read Watchmen, one of the first things I thought was, I'm glad they didn't use the Charlton characters, and I'm not reading this story with Blue Beetle. Eventually, they did screw up all these characters because that's the way DC went. But I was so glad that they weren't using them in there because I could really enjoy that comic because it was characters created for the Watchmen.
Well, Blue Beetle in question were killed.
Yeah, exactly.
And replaced with Blue Beetle with Jamie Reyes and Renee Montoya, I think, was the question for a while.
Yeah, but the question is a character they don't like because they don't like the ideology behind the character, so they can't write. So they can't write him properly. Great. Yeah, it's a terrific character.
It's the closest thing I think they had to the Spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have Dark Knight Returns. I have Watchmen. I have. I don't think I have anything really from Mark Miller. He did Civil War.
I think Civil War's done as much damage to modern comics as anything.
Well, he also created the zombie universe. He did the Ultimates.
Yeah, I think. I mean, people in the chat might disagree, but I think Civil War is the single worst comic that Marvel's put out.
Why is that?
Before the modern kind of like SJW kind of like Marvel, because what it did was it posited that we're in the real world. And it gave them a kind of real world scenario to work with. And so it's like, how would they look at things through a political lens? And that was the beginning of the end for how they were going to write characters at Marvel from then onwards.
You know what chased me out of Marvel? The heroes spent more time fighting the heroes than they did the villains.
That's it. Yep. So they don't see eye to eye, so they're going to fight. What should happen is they meet for the first time, they have a wee fight, and then like John Wayne and Lee Marvin, they team up, you know.
That's the 70s.
That's exactly what they should be doing.
That's Hercules and Thor. Exactly.
That's a Marvel comic. Not an endless interlocking mini-series sort of thing where interlocking series and mini-series where they're continually kind of like bashing heads because they've got different political viewpoints.
Well, they're going to call it nuance.
Yeah, it's just dull. It's just so dull.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so what we got here? Okay, so kind of keeping on that kind of high contrast, Chris Somney, another situation. He churns these things out real fast, and I think part of that reason is he lays out his blacks really fast, and then once you fill that in, it's half over. You just put a couple like Captain America's leg. That's 2 lines.
Yeah, I know. But again, that's he's got very much a kind of like a sense of a graphic designer about him.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not 100% sure how fast he is, But I mean, these are like daily sketches that he does. So this is just practice for the man.
Yeah.
But I can, I mean, I can see, I feel like he does set out his almost layouts in like big blocks of shapes, silhouettes and stuff almost when he's laying it out, and then fills his blacks in and then finishes off detail. At least that's my theory, and that's kind of what I've moved to do to like get stuff on the page faster, and it works.
Yeah,
it absolutely works.
It does.
Because I mean, like if you get like this one right here, like that black and white contrast, that's all you really need to give all the information you need. Your page could be done, and the coloring would be very simple and effective here. The yellow there, and maybe some blue or purple in the cityscape, and it would be a perfectly good comic page.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I notice sometimes with some of these newer books is they go out of their way to make it detailed, and they take so much time trying to make everything perfect when you really could have just done almost the same thing with a few well-placed messy lines. Boom, boom, boom. There's a building.
Yeah, it's one of those things as well. It's like you have to know your focal point.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want people to look at first in the image? And everything doesn't need detail. It just needs the illusion of detail, like a cityscape. It's the illusion of detail.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the busyness of a city, especially at night time when the lights are there and nothing's quite in focus, because that's reality.
It's like over here, that's just white lines on a black smudge.
Yep.
And then right here, it's just a bunch of white lines. Really, it's difficult to draw, but I mean, once you get used to it, it doesn't take as long as most people might think. I mean, that could be depending on, what you want to do, but I mean, you get a quick picture of architecture and you just go, okay, well,
yep,
here's a 2-floor right here, and this is what a New York skyscraper looks like, and it's very practicable, very learnable.
Definitely.
But yeah, so we got Chris Bachelow. His layouts had a big effect on me and how he does. These are again sketches, but I feel like his use again of blacks to kind of like carve stuff out, almost like a sculptor. I kind of like that. I wonder how long one of these takes. Him, I really started to like. There's this old DS game, An Alien Infestation. It's one of the last games the Nintendo DS put out, where you're playing as the Colonial Marines and you're running around, and there's like 20 different soldiers, and you can find them, and they're like an extra life basically when you find one. But he did separate drawings for each of those soldiers, and then went back and I was looking at like his X-Men run, because he did that in the early 2000s.
So, see, that's why I'm not. I've seen his work online, and it's really nice, but I've not read many of his comics that he's worked on, because I picked up a couple of issues of the X-Men, and his work's great. But
I'm more of a fan of his sketches like this.
Yeah, they weren't great comics. So
I love the black-white contrasts.
Yeah.
And the gray tones and stuff in there. But
I'm curious to play that DS game. I might have a wee search for it, see if I can get a copy.
That's a little more expensive because it was one of the last ones put out. But you might be able to find one without like a case or something.
Yeah. I'll accept any version of it.
But again, here he doesn't use a lot of rendering, except for like these little quick lines and stuff like this. I feel like this is almost Mignola inspired.
Yeah, I was thinking that's definitely. I think he's inspired a lot of artists when he
kind of that same school
developed that style.
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
I'm sure I read an interview with Mignola back in Amazing Heroes or something, where he was talking about how he developed that style to help hide deficiencies in drawing.
Oh yeah,
and I can understand why that was a case, but it worked out that it ended up developing a style that just worked.
Mignola's kind of funny because the art's incredibly flat.
Yeah,
but he somehow finds depth in it.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at his more traditional comic book stuff in Alpha Flight before he changed that style, it is markedly different.
I just wish he hadn't Forsaken Shoulders.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Duncan Fegredo, who is on Hellboy, you can certainly see like that Mignola style in here.
Yeah.
But I think, is Mignola if Mignola didn't rely on heavy spot blacks and put a little more detail into his work.
Yeah, it's got more of a influence of the studio, isn't it? Sort of like Kaluta and Barry Windsor-Smith and Bernie Wrights and all these artists.
Barry Windsor-Smith, another guy I forgot to put on here.
Yeah, it has that kind of. It definitely has. Yeah, and what's his name? P. Craig Russell as well. You can see all these guys from the 70s and 80s. I think it was called the Studio, wasn't it? They all hung out together and worked together.
But I like these guys for their use of like using black to bring things forward on the page.
Yeah,
like you should, setting that stuff in the background, and that's something certainly a very useful skill to learn, because I mean, once you do that just with black, you're unstoppable, and then any coloring, it's a joy to be able to do that stuff. But I mean, with the cross hatching, I first noticed his cross hatching a long time ago. He did like a Clerks mini series or something like that, where the amount of detail you go in, it'd be a messy room, and he'd be drawing like tipped over Chinese food cans and cups and like clothing and all kinds of stuff, fill the entire page. He always had backgrounds in all of his stuff. It was a very full page kind of thing, and that had a big impact on me in terms of like wanting to have a background. So it's like a setting, it's like a movie setting or something like that. You really want to have a background, unless there's an emphasis on the character and what they're doing. Drop the background out so you can really focus on the character.
Yep.
But now I want to go to one of my favorite old school actors, Jack Davis. Jack Davis, the brushwork this man was capable of.
I've actually been looking at that cover recently for something I'm working on.
Which one, the werewolf one? Or
no, not the werewolf one. I try not to look at werewolf stuff because I want my werewolves to be mine. That one, yeah. Funnily enough, I've been looking at that for something I've been thinking of working on, just as a kind of research.
Yeah. Are you talking about like the style of cover, like that the Tales from the Crypt Square kind of thing? Or are you talking about?
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, definitely. It's that whole kind of like. I like that. I like that kind of like. Shape, and I've been thinking of doing something in that shape.
Well,
so I've been looking at a lot of their covers.
Didn't you do something like that with the Taddy Bogo Man?
Well, I was thinking of doing something like that with It Was a Dark. Yeah, funnily enough.
I've always loved this, like this and the Ultimate Marvel line where they just had the two black strips down the side. Yeah. And then you put like, you can have things break the panel kind of thing. But this one, you just put that little like square drawing right there, and then you've got your letterhead there.
Yeah, I always liked it when they had a proper thought out design and they stuck to it. I always liked that.
And it's great because I mean, you just switch the word up. You switch the word up here, and you get your new title, and you can interchange them pretty much forever. Let me just get in here. So the funny thing about this, and the thing about Jack Davis is, I mean, yes, he could do like really detailed stuff like this, but he did a lot of like super cartoony caricature stuff. I think he did some stuff for Cracked.
Yep.
Did a lot of that kind of thing. But I mean, you look at that arm or that back, you got that main line right there. And then you've got, in a way, it's almost like Lee Weeks, and he's using the hatching to just get those muscles in there.
Yep, so I'm just having a quick look for something here as well. In case you wonder why I'm typing.
Oh no, that's fine. I mean, you get like the main line work in the back, those big strokes like that, and then everything else is done with these fine little lines. I think it's amazing to bring it out in the front.
He was like a proper draftsman and illustrator, but a cartoonist at the same time. Everything had that kind of slightly cartoonish feel.
I like hatching,
and it worked. I'm trying to find a good.
I think there's a point where there's too much hatching, like Neil Adams' latest stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think maybe he went a little bit across that line, but I mean,
I don't know how much of that's him though.
Oh, you mean he's got an inker?
I think he's. Did you not like?
I thought he did himself.
Have people that work for him, like he's.
Oh, I suppose.
I'm guessing he does, and I don't know. But I was having a look at the stuff he's doing right now in Fantastic Four, and I'm not loving it.
Oh, right.
Still good though, you know. But
oh yeah,
that's only because I'm comparing it to.
But
I have a hard time finding what I'm looking for here. I was looking for I was going to do a callback to one
this
of
kind of stuff was showing me how to do like grays without any coloring. You know, deeper the hatch, the darker the gray, or the cross hatching and stuff like that, or rendering, as Captain F. Ed would call it, because he hates the term hatching, I guess.
Yeah, well, technically it's hatching or cross hatching. Yeah,
right, yeah.
Because rendering is just the application of the ink to the paper.
Right. But yeah, I mean, like some of these, that's one thing that you got to do to get out of your comfort zone. You got to just draw stuff that's really mundane, like shoes.
Yeah, I think the first Jack Davis stuff I saw was probably his poster for Kelly's Heroes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he did so many kind of like movie posters. I'm going to share this one if I can.
Okay.
I can't find one that'll big up. You know what it's like sometimes.
That was one thing I loved about EC back in the day. They didn't have a house style. They didn't believe in it. So it's very independent comic thinking within a company. They'd always talk about who the artist was drawing the issue, and Elliot Gould.
So there's that when they did, because that was called back to our second at the movie show.
Is this from Cracked?
No, this was they released The Long Goodbye, which is, remember I said, was one of my favourite kind of like adaptations of like a Marlowe story, and it didn't do well, and they thought it was a marketing. Well, it wasn't marketing because it marketed as if it was an actual old style kind of like hard-boiled thriller.
Sure.
And it wasn't. It was a kind of like a sly postmodern 1970s take. It was like the idea behind it was, what if Marlowe had fallen asleep and then woken up in the 70s and he's now stuck in a world that's like, the 1970s California. Mm-hmm. So they had this poster made up and they got Jack Davis to do it so that they could re-release it. And I think they just did it. Maybe just did it in like a few kind of did it in New York and certain territories where they thought it would do well.
Right.
And it did well. It did better with this poster because people didn't go in expecting Humphrey Bogart. They expected a more kind of like off the wall and quirky kind of movie. And so Jack Davis, he was your man to go to back then for movie posters before Photoshop. Ruined it for everybody.
But I mean, aside from these comic guys, I left some of the other guys I've been looking at off the list because they're not exactly comic book guys, but getting in a lot into the 9 Old Men, like Ward Kimball and Ollie Johnson.
Yeah.
That kind of thing will teach you not only speed and stuff, but exaggeration, learning how to squash, stretch, and create movement. I don't think there's any better kind of a lesson than looking at animation cells or how they do animation.
No, and that's an awfully nice book as well to put in your coffee table. Book.
Boy, oh boy, is it. I still look through it.
It's heavy.
Which is great.
Yep.
The Illusion of Life and the 9 Old Men are two like I don't know, you call them textbooks, but I mean, I use them as textbooks.
Yeah.
In terms of like how to do structure.
Yeah, I use theirs like when I'm teaching animation, but it's Richard Williams is the one that I use the most.
And I think that's one thing I love, how to draw Marvel comics the Marvel way. But for me, the hang up that I always had with that, it was too dang perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when he's showing you how to lay out like put everything into like cubes or something like that. And it's all drawn one line, perfect.
Yeah.
You go into these animation things, you're seeing they're scribbling the entire time.
Yeah, I think because at the same time, it was like one of these things where how to draw comics the Marvel way was a good how-to book if you read between the lines, because it also was meant to be a good book for people to just buy that wanted to look at really nice images.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was somewhere between them.
You kind of have to know a little bit how to draw.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a great book and it's helped me a lot. But I mean, I think I got a lot more from looking at animation books than I ever did from like how to draw comic books.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. That's just my path I took.
Yeah, I get that, definitely. I think the Animator Survival Kit, that's the Richard Williams one. I use it all the time. I can never remember the name of it.
I got to look at that.
Yeah, it's a really good book.
But that's usually what all the speed sketches and stuff that I post on Twitter is just learning how to draw or do some form and stuff in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, think about all your kind of like speed sketches on your cartoons and that. People think that when you do the cartooning, it's mostly going to be kind of funny book stuff that you're going to bring up, and that's not the case, as we've seen today. But were there any kind of like daily cartoons that you read growing up? Like, when newspapers used to be a thing?
Oh, yeah. I read Calvin and Hobbes, of course. Well, when I was little, most kids read Garfield. And I think it was a little bit different in the early 90s, late 80s than it is now. And now it's, he's got ghost artists, he's got ghost writers.
Yeah.
And it's like a zombie. It's moving, but there's really no reason. There's no life behind it anymore.
Yeah. I think the animated show probably kept Garfield alive in most people's eyes with cartoons and stuff like that.
Another one that like really got me buzzing as far as how to do layout and stuff was Winsor McKay.
Yeah,
I just ordered Illusion of Life. I'm looking forward to getting that. But the Little Nemo story, it's not great to read. It's not great to read at all. It's very stiff. Yeah,
it's an odd one because it's you don't really need to read it. Just look at it.
Yep, absolutely.
It's like the Art Nouveau acid trip from the 1930s is how I would explain it.
That rivals
crazy
Wonderland.
Yeah, definitely it does.
Craziness or Oz.
But you look at that, and then you look at Crazy Cat as well. You look at the stuff that we're doing in the 30s, and they really were pushing the boundaries of the medium in a newspaper.
They were creating it.
Yeah, it's probably one of the reasons why the newspaper artists were looked at as being something. They were up on a pedestal, and they were paid a lot of money, whereas comic book artists were, they were down they were slumming it.
And making beer money.
Yeah, paid pennies, unless they were Bob Kane, of course. You had to be a good businessman.
Or Eisner.
To make money. Or Eisner, yeah. But, I was thinking, so is there anybody else then that you kind of want to mention? Because there's bound to be tons, because I know I always think of loads.
Oh my gosh. We could go on for like 4 hours if we're... one second, let me see here. I just got... Oh, perfect. Here we go. Let me just drag a couple of these over to my share screen here. I just got Contract with God, the trilogy. I don't know if you know. Have you read that?
Yes. I read them years ago. I need to revisit them again. And,
well, first of all, I mean, holy cow, is it an adult book? But this
I read it when it was first came out.
The first quite young when novel, I read it. I was
like, wow.
Like, so I guess, I didn't know it was the first graphic novel, the first one where he just kind of like, it's not a collection of stuff. It's just a book that I'm selling. And this has been a heck of an education for me about just pen technique.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like I got into Will Eisner a little bit later. He was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, Will Eisner. But I mean, until I got to really know what I was doing, I couldn't appreciate it. Like just that brickwork.
Yeah.
Looking at that, like how simple that is.
Yeah, I think that's one of the pages I tried to copy, because I would sit and I would try and copy techniques from different artists. And then you realize just one, how simple it is, but two, how difficult it is to
and
do.
How he didn't use panels in half of this stuff. That like shocked me. Just going zoom, 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 zoom like that. This is, even if I never read it, this is a very special thing to look at in terms of like learning.
Well, it's pure comics. That's
the thing.
That's what I love about this, and the fact he's not using the things that you would take for granted in comics, like panels and that, he does away with, and it's just the flow of the story. And
I mean, just books like this, like that's or pages like that. It's so simple, and it's there, right there is exactly the like focal point. There's nothing else you need, and then his lettering, like I'll just do what I want, where I want.
Yeah.
No, no panels, like sometimes no panels, no thought bubbles at times, or like word balloons or whatever like that. That one was what got me kind of like thinking about page layout in terms of like a very...
Oh, that's a unique. It's not me that's disappeared this week. It's Statto, who I think has just managed to delete himself for the stream. So I'm just wait till he pops back in again. Contract with God, as you were saying, it's a fantastic book. If nobody's read any Eisner, you should do. You should have a look at them. Frank Miller talks about Eisner all the time, and he was friendly with Eisner. It's strange that when he actually made an Eisner movie in the spirit, that he did such a bad job of it, because Eisner's actual spirit stories in his work has real life and vitality to it. And hold on to your hats, talking about spirit.
I hit the wrong button.
I'm saying we're mixing it up this week. It's not me that's disappearing.
That's right. I'm trying to help you feel a little bit better about when it does happen.
Cheers. Luckily, I'm just in my last sip of wine, so I was fine. I was able to handle it.
But yeah, that kind of goes through for me. I mean, like if you were to ask me like my top 10 books, I couldn't do it. I've got so dang many comic books in my office here, just boxes and boxes.
I could probably do it, but then again, I've just had a bottle of wine. Feedback.
It's the funny thing is, like, some of these books, I don't particularly like the story, but I'll keep it for the art.
It's funny though, because you're talking about favorite books. I automatically think Forever People #11, which was the last issue of Forever People. Just because when I read it as a kid, it was the first Forever People comic that I read, and I had to go and find all the back issues because of it.
Space hippies.
Yeah, so that and I had the character they'll become Infinity Man. It's just Jack Kirby at his wackiest.
Oh man, when they cut the leash off of him.
So to this day, if I was to make a top 10, it would be including comics that most people would be raising their eyebrow and going, "How's that a top 10 comic?"
Oh yeah. My top 10 would probably not be like super. I mean, you wouldn't see Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen on mine. I know a lot of people say that, but for me, it would definitely not be anything like that.
No, I probably. Yeah, I'm thinking I probably wouldn't as well. Yeah, we should do that sometime.
Oh, definitely.
It's good for the algorithm, seemingly, if you put top 10 in it. So.
Oh yeah.
Hashtag Planet of the Apes. You never know what happens.
I'd probably try to cheat and say like, oh yeah, this guy's run or something like that. It's like 200 issues or something.
No, we need to do that at some point in the new year. We'd be very strict with it and make it actual issues of comics rather than graphic novels. That would be something else.
Oh yeah, just dissect them.
Yeah, because people talk about comics now and they're not actually talking about comics, they're talking about collections. Or
just what's news, gossip, what's going on, kind of stuff. Absolutely, I agree.
Cool. That's something I'm going to do in the future. Oh, I should probably be sharing stuff, shouldn't I?
If you want.
It's because I've had very little to do, because you did all the flashcards this week. It's great.
That's right. That's the kind of guest I am.
Yeah. You can come back.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah.
Except for that time I, took your show from you.
That's right. That was good though. That's one of our highest rated shows. That whole night actually is one of our highest rates. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, we're up in at least 30 years. There you go. Right, I can't find it. Where's it going? I keep making these thumbnails.
That was your new number one before you went back to legacy numbering.
That's it. I hate legacy numbering. I'm getting confused now because I've got so many shows on the go. And I realise I'm going to do my country music one in the new year as well, so that'll be interesting. That's bound to bring me in at least a single figure viewers. I
can't get enough of that Willie Nelson.
Yeah, well, you can't know. So, here we go. Yes, you have been watching Comic Book Gold.
Oh, I was going to say, is this the next one? It's a rerun.
Yeah, next week is the next favourite artists of Statistical Zero. No, next week we shall be here with a double bill on the channel. Yeah, dun, dun, dun. So double feature. Oh, yes, where you're meant to subscribe, hit the bells, hit the thumbs, all that kind of stuff. There's probably a link down there to Yale So Dark, which is a really good Indiegogo campaign. You should check it. Yeah, probably that as well. But next week we should be here at an earlier time of 6:45. I'm mixing it up. With the mighty Lucifer Storm, which is a name from a Marvel comic as well. Best name in comics, Lucifer Storm. I
don't truly believe he is a preacher.
I don't think so. But he will be preaching next week at 6:45.
Good news for his book.
Yeah, because his book could be going live. I think it's going live on Monday. Lady Satan, Angel in a Killer's Dress. It's an all-ages family affair, fun for all the family. No, it's not. It's not at all. It's a dark, exciting revenge thriller.
As long as it's not a self-insert.
No.
Or anything.
No.
We've had so much of that already.
No, it looks terrific, and I'm looking forward to it. It's something a bit different as well, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. So yes, that will be at 6:45 next week, and then we shall be back together, me and Statto, and we're going to be joined with a special guest star, Charlie's London, and we're going to be looking at the silent movies of Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, emphasis on looking rather than listening to the silent movies of Alfred Hitchcock, and that's a quote from the great man himself. Silent pictures were the purest form of cinema. You know, I think he just didn't like working with writers.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So that's going to be fun and interesting. That. Also, it's not stuff I can put on in the background while I'm working. I actually have to watch them.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's something I was thinking about. I was telling my wife, like, oh, I don't think I've seen a ton of these, so I'll actually have to sit and watch them as opposed to listen while I work. So.
Yeah, well, in my research, the ones I've got on there look to be the ones we should be looking at. So
okay.
The Ring, I didn't even know about a silent boxing movie. I'm sure cool. Charlie's knows. And The Pleasure Garden, The Lodger, and that other one that I can't see because we've got the Charlie's London's over it. So we're kind of coming to this quite new. I've seen The Lodger. I've seen that years ago.
I want to say I've seen at least one or two. I just have to kind of rewatch them just to. Oh yes, this one.
Yeah, the ones I have on the Velo ones, I think I've seen them. But it's going to be interesting because we're going to have to do homework for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and find a way of somehow bringing Planet of the Apes into play. I'm sure we'll do it.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I'm excited.
Definitely.
I'm always excited.
It's going to be fun. So that's next week. It's going to be a good long evening on the channel. Me and Statto will be here with Charlie at 8 and 6:45. I'm going to be here with Lucifer. That's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy that. So, Statto, thank you very much for essentially just doing everything tonight.
And thank you.
It's been great fun. Yeah. I loved because we would have to do that more often. I loved the kind of like the fact you were drawing over stuff as well, and we were talking about technique and comic book artists. That was great fun.
Anytime. Yeah. Always up for it.
Excellent. We'll need to do that stuff. We'll do that about stuff we don't understand as well. We'll just make it that we do.
Just trying to puzzle it out.
Exactly. So thanks to everybody in the chat for turning up and listening and looking at the screen every now and then, I'm sure. And we will see you all next week.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.